Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to make some autumnal collage fodder with our mushroom stamps. I'm using this set. I have already mounted all the stamps to an acrylic block, and I have pulled out tons of jelly prints. I picked only papers that were already cut a little, so I can use these, and then I have more empty storage for new papers. I'm using StazOn to stamp the images, and I'm planning on not only stamping the images, I then want to color each image with the papers, so with collage. I realized that my ink pad was running out of ink, so I quickly re-inked it a little bit. What I'm going to do, I did this already in the past, and there is already a video with another stamp set where I do the same thing on my channel, and you can do this technique with every stamp set you have. I would say it's always good to have a stamp set with where the image has some areas, so not only a flower where you don't have separate areas to then use, but you will see what I mean once we are more in the video. I'm starting by stamping the images fully on a piece of paper of the jelly print. You can use any color paper you want. And later I will just stamp the head of the mushroom, for example, or some of these little inside bits the mushrooms have on another colored paper. And later I will cut out everything, and then I will adhere all the parts onto the base mushroom. I'm not sure if I can explain that to you in the right way. I think this technique is called paper piecing. It's a fun way to create very unique images. It's also a really nice technique to do if you have figure stamps, for example. That's also quite a cute way to color these in. I will now speed up that process because it's quite boring. Watch me stamping all the time, and I stamped quite more than you see here in the video, but because it's just stamping. I try to pick more neutral colors for the base mushroom because I will use the base and keep the stem of the mushroom in this color. But you can also make a white base and then color in with paper everything. But I don't want to talk too much until we are at this point. I plan to use these finished images later on different projects. For example, on art journal pages, on tags, greeting cards. You can use them to decorate your planner, scrapbook albums, scrapbook layouts, whatever you like. And I really love them because they are very unique compared to a normal colored in image. If you would like to see how I make my jelly prints, you can have a look at the playlist. I have all my jelly printing sessions in a separate playlist, so you can find that easily and you can watch it. Some of the prints I'm using will definitely be in one of the videos, but you will find all the techniques that I'm using for jelly printing in these videos. So I'm going to try not to forget to link that up at the top right corner info box so you can check out the jelly printing videos. I also have a membership program for over half a year now where I share extra videos every other Saturday with my mixed media play tier members, and yeah, we are doing all kinds of stuff. It's a bit less stamp heavy. It's a bit more doing things on your own, I would say. Of course, I also use sometimes stamps there and stencils, but usually not always and not in every video. We have a big collection already, I would say, with some nice videos and more studio sessions, I would say, compared to these edited videos, because I usually do not edit the members' videos in this way. I don't cut them down. I usually leave them as they are, and I'm also usually not doing voiceovers. I try to always record directly from my studio when I am working. Well, sometimes I have to make voiceovers because the kids might be at home and it's quite loud in the background or something like that. I'm using a piece of foam underneath my paper so the stamp can sink into it a little bit, and that makes it easier to get a good stamp impression. It's always important to have a fully inked stamp pad, because with StazOn ink and acrylics you always get kind of a sticky contact, and that's sometimes a bit difficult to get a good stamp impression, but it works just fine if you have a good re-inked stamp pad. I'm using StazOn because that dries immediately. It does not stay wet, it dries permanent, and that's yeah, the best. I think it's very handy when you don't have to wait for things to dry. And because I'm going to cut these all out, I don't want to smear anything. I usually cut these at the evenings in front of the TV. I think that's quite a relaxing exercise. It's yeah, it's something I often do. If I don't sketch or paint, then I would cut out anything that I had prepared during the day. I do not think too much about the colors that I pick of the papers. I just try to get some really bright and interesting textures on my image, and usually when you then put everything together, you will find matching pairs where you say, oh, these color combos are quite nice. I'm going to use the images I'm making today, or the fodder pieces I make today, in my future projects, and I will share these either here with a tutorial or over on our shop blog. There I also shared some of the recent backgrounds I've made as a project. I think 2 days ago or 3 days ago I shared an art journal page with these vintage papers that I've made, and jump over, have a look. You can subscribe through our newsletter to the blog, and then you can see what I'm doing with my stuff. As I said, I cut everything out, and I have arranged it all around a piece of paper that I'm going to use, because I'm using my glue stick to put everything together. I don't want to have the glue stick all over my desk. And I have sorted them so I can easily find everything. And here I have these bigger mushrooms where I really like that you can bend the stem a little. I'm now sorting which cap I want to use, and I put the ones aside that I like the most. And what I also want to do is I want to use the underside of the head of the mushroom and make it in a separate color. So I need 2 heads for 1 mushroom. I would just stick down the bigger head and then cut off the inside from one of the other heads and put it over the top, but you will see how I do this immediately. Yeah, I just look which cap looks better than the other, and I would use those and not cut away the best part. And you can see you can bend the stem of the mushroom a little bit when you stamp it, so they all look in a little bit of a different direction, which is quite interesting if you use multiple stamps on a project. You have to cut out all these images, especially not the base mushrooms, but all the other bits, directly on the black outline. You can cut away some parts of the black outline, that does not matter, because we will then stick it up on each other and we will line it up with the black outlines, and then you almost can't see that these are glued together. To make it even perfect, you could ink every piece with a black marker on the outside, so you get rid of the white edge of the paper you get when you cut it. But I didn't do that because that would be just too much work, I think. And what you also could do, if you prefer a white border around your mushroom, you could stamp your base mushrooms or your base images, depending on which stamps you're using, to a piece of white cardstock, and then stamp each mushroom on jelly prints and use the pieces to fill in that image that you've stamped to the white paper. And then you can leave a border around the base mushroom, of course, when you cut it out, so you get that more sticker feel. And I think also sometimes it's really nice to have a white outside, because then it pops up more from a project, depending on what you are creating, of course. And here you can see how beautiful that mushroom already looks, and here you can see the difference you can make when stamping it with a bent stamp. I always have a look that I get some interesting color combinations with complementary colors if possible. But sometimes they are not as contrasting as I had wished, but yeah, but they are so colorful and unique. You will always find one that will fit your project you've made. And it's always so handy to have ready to be used images or photo pieces at home, so you can quickly create something. I have to speed this part up as well, I think, because that's also always the same what I'm doing, and it might get a little bit boring, I think. Of course, I did not count beforehand how many pieces I need, how many mushrooms I have stamped, and during the process of putting them together, I just sometimes stamped some pieces again because I was missing some. And there was one mushroom where I only had stamped one time, so I stamped it a few more times, so I have a good collection later. I'm using the Tombow glue stick, and what I like about it, you have a little bit of time to move things around or to just remove it again, and then that's quite nice, because sometimes you might make the wrong decision, or you just have to move the piece a little bit so to line it up perfectly. I will link up all the products I've been using in the video description, and I get often asked which papers I'm using for jelly printing, and here I've been using usual printer paper but with a heavier weight, so usually I use from 120 to 200 GSM. I often try to keep the base mushroom on a heavy paper, so a thicker paper, because that makes it a bit more stable. And what I've also used is some of the jelly prints I'm having here are from my sketchbook. So I already printed 2 full sketchbooks which were spiral bound with jelly prints. There are also videos where I'm doing it on my channel. And this is 160 GSM drawing paper. Drawing paper is not the best for the Gelli Plate because it tends to tear when it's wet, so you have to either work really quickly or you have to let things dry on the Gelli Plate, which takes a lot of time. So that's a bit more difficult. But the printer paper I'm using, I think the HP printer paper works just as fine. It does not tear, but every paper is a little bit different. Once I'm done with all the mushrooms, I'm sorting them usually in kind of these handmade collage fodder pockets. I think I have to make one for these because I only have this one which does not fit all of my mushrooms. And there must be also tutorials. There could be a video on how I'm doing it. I try to find that and link it up. And there is definitely 1 or 2 blog posts over with a tutorial over on our blog on how I make different storages for my collage fodder. I will also try to link this either up in the info cards or in the video description, so get a look and check that out. I really like to have these sorted in these kind of pockets. When I did my first pocket, I just thought, well, that might be just a crafty thing and you would not need it. But I really now use them a lot because the stuff is sorted. It looks beautiful and inspiring, and I find everything quite quickly. Here you can see another version I have for my collage fodder to store it in. That's also really nice for the holder, I would say. And this is also made from a jelly print, same as the other one. Also a good way to use your jelly prints. Yes, that was my video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. You are inspired. You can do this with all your stamps you have and make beautiful images. Jump over to the blog for some photos and hopefully we will see us next time. Bye!